All right, good afternoon. A couple of updates from South Sudan. Today, the humanitarian coordinator for South Sudan, Serge Tissot, called on the government to ensure that thousands of civilians sheltering in and around ABUROC are not subject to attacks. He also called on the opposition forces to ensure that areas highly populated by civilians are and remain demilitarized. An interagency mission traveled to ABUROC on Saturday and found that about 30,000 Shilluk civilians, including new arrivals and those displaced during the earlier offensive on Shilluk, displaced people in urgent need of clean water and other life-saving assistance. More details online. And as you will have seen, that we issued a statement over the weekend in which we urged the government and other warring parties to cease hostilities, uphold their responsibility to protect civilians, and cooperate fully with the United Nations and other humanitarian actors to ensure safe access to all civilians in imminent danger along the west bank of the River Nile. And the UN mission in South Sudan also said on Saturday that the first elements of the Regional Protection Force have started to arrive in the country. The RPF headquarters has already been established in Juba under the leadership of Brigadier Jean Mumpenzi from Rwanda, and more information again online from the UN mission. And turning to Syria, we remain deeply concerned that the deteriorating security and humanitarian situation in eastern Ghouta in rural Damascus, including reports of intensified fighting among non-state armed groups in the enclave over the past few days. Commercial and humanitarian supplies continue to be prevented from entering eastern Ghouta since March, resulting in significant price hikes of basic staple goods for some 400,000 people who are trapped in the area. Civilian infrastructure, including medical facilities and schools, continue to be affected by the tight restrictions and reports of shelling, airstrikes, and ground fighting. The UN has not reached any part of eastern Ghouta since October of last year. The UN stands ready to immediately deliver life-saving assistance to those in need of assistance in eastern Ghouta, should the pause be established and abided by all parties to the conflict. Meanwhile, the Executive Director of the World Food Programme, David Beasley, will make an official visit to Lebanon and Syria. This is his first in his newly appointed role as head of the World Food Programme. Mr. Beasley will be in Lebanon and Syria through May 3rd to meet Syrians affected by the ongoing crisis and witness the profound humanitarian crisis firsthand. And turning to Iraq, a group of 36 Yazidi survivors, including women, men, and children, have recently been rescued from slavery, having been held in captivity by Daesh for nearly 3 years. The Yazidi women and girls are currently being cared for at dedicated service points set up by the UN Population Fund, UNFPA, with the support of the Dutch government. They have been provided with first response assistance, including lodging, clothing, medical and psychosocial first aid, even as they are reunited with their families. It is assessed that up to 1,500 women and girls remain in captivity and may be exposed to protracted sexual abuse by Daesh. What these women and girls have endured is unimaginable, said the humanitarian coordinator for Iraq, Lise Grande, adding that the UN, through UNFPA, is doing everything possible to provide the kind of specialized medical and psychological support these women and girls need. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that there was a big spike in the number of people fleeing western Mosul yesterday, with double the number of people transiting through a screening site located in Mosul, south of Mosul rather. These numbers may rise further in the coming days as military operations progress in the old city. And I wanted to flag that the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein, will be visiting Ethiopia at the invitation of the Ethiopian government from the 2nd to the 4th of May of this year. Mr. Zeid will meet with the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the House of People's Representative, and other high-ranking Ethiopian officials. He will also meet with the chairperson of the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, members of civil society organizations, political parties, as well as African Union officials, including the chairperson of the Commission, Mr. Musa Fakit Mahamat. And the High Commissioner, as you may have seen, gave an extensive press conference today in Geneva on a number of human rights issues around the world. I think more information is available on the High Commissioner's website. And our colleagues at UNHCR wanted to let us know that a plane carrying core relief items arrived yesterday in Luanda, in Angola, to assist over 11,000 people who fled the recent surge of violence in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. More relief items will be airlifted to Angola in the coming days. The conflict in the Kasai region of the DRC has already displaced more than 1 million people within the country since it began in middle of last year. And more information online. As you will have seen on Friday, we issued a statement welcoming the withdrawal of all FRENTE POLISARIO elements from GUERGUERAT area between the Berm and the border with Mauritania, as confirmed by UN observers on the 27th and 28th of April. We continue to call on the parties to adhere to their obligations under the ceasefire agreement and to respect both its letters and spirit, and to cooperate fully with the UN mission. The need to ensure that tensions do not erupt anew in Guerguerat remains vital. And I wanted to flag that our colleagues in the UN Chamber Music Society of the UN Staff Recreation Council will be performing a New World concert on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Concert is being presented by the Czech mission to the UN and the Consulate General of the Czech Republic and the Czech Center. The program will feature classical chamber masterpieces from the Czech Republic, including arrangements by Dorvak, sorry, bad pronunciation. The concert will take place in the ballroom of the Bohemian National Hall, and I think tickets are available through the Czech Permanent Mission. And today, 1:15, press conference here on Indigenous Human Rights Defenders with Vicky Tauli-Corpuz, the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and Lourdes Tiban-Gwala, member of the UN Permanent Forum of Indigenous Issues. And at 3:15 p.m., please don't forget, the Permanent Representative of Uruguay will be here to present the program of work for the month of May. And lastly, we say thank you to our friends in Guatemala and in the UK who have paid their regular budget dues in full, bringing us up to 92. 92. And at this point, you ask me questions. Yes, sir.
A few minutes ago, Mr. Ken Roth, who is the head of the Human Rights Watch, he contradicted Ambassador Paulo Pinheiro's statement that he issued, Mr. Ambassador Pinheiro issued a week or so ago, that there was no evidence. There was no evidence of the Syrian government's involvement in the chemical attack. And Mr. Roth's position is that Mr. Pinheiro, the reason why Mr. Pinheiro concluded...
Are you using your microphone?
Oh, shucks, I'm so sorry.
You could just skip to the second part.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes. He said, Mr. Roth said that Mr. Pinheiro, the reason why he concluded that there was no Syrian government involvement was that Mr. Pinheiro did not, and his team did not do enough investigation. They did not gather the correct evidence. In effect, suggesting that Ambassador Pinheiro's work was somewhat shoddy. Would you like to comment on that as to what Mr. Roth's position with regards to the ambassador?
I was not at the briefing. What I can tell you is that obviously the OPCW is doing its work on the chemical weapons attack. There are existing frameworks, including the Joint Investigative Mechanism, to pursue it further if needed. I'm not sure Mr. Pinheiro used those exact words, but what I do know is that the work of Mr. Pinheiro and his other commissioners is vitally important for the long-term issue of accountability for what the Syrian people have suffered. Carol.
Stéphane, also at that press conference, Human Rights Watch expressed frustration with the fact that there hasn't been an appointment of the head of the accountability mechanism that was voted by the General Assembly, and they suggested that the Secretary General was dragging his feet on it. Can you tell
I don't
us what's
think
going
the
on?
Secretary General is dragging its feet. My understanding is that that process is underway, and hopefully we'll be able to announce it soon. But there is no, I don't think there's any feet dragging by the Secretary General nor anyone else. Mr. Lee, and then Edie.
Sure. First, I see on the Secretary General's schedule that at 12:15, so I guess about now, he's supposed to be meeting with, quote, members of U.S. Congress. Can you say who the members are and what the purpose of the meeting is?
Yes, I have. In fact, I should have brought the list with me. It's it's a delegation of congresswomen, Democratic congresswomen, and it's a visit that's been arranged by the United Nations Foundation, and the Secretary General agreed to meet with them. And I'll send you. I'll share. We'll make the list available as soon as I.
And I wanted to ask you something. This has happened before, so maybe you'll have an answer to it. There was on Friday after the meeting on Western Sahara in the Security Council, there were 3 stakeouts: Morocco, Algeria, and then Polisario. And 3 days later, only Morocco and Algeria are up, and not Polisario. Now, the last time it took several days, and then it was appended behind Algeria. How did the same thing happen again, or that it hasn't even been appended yet?
I can look into it.
But isn't it? I mean, after last time, I guess.
I said
given.
I said I would look into it.
Okay. Can I ask you now? Go ahead.
Edie.
Thank you, Steph. On the release of the 34, 35 Yazidi, mainly women and children, you stressed what the UN was doing to help them. Did the UN play any role in their release, and is the UN doing anything, because there are more than 1,000 or 1,500 Yazidis who are still basically enslaved?
We're not directly involved in the extraction operation. These, as you can imagine, are rather delicate operations, but we are following those very closely to ensure that as soon as these women and girls reach safety, they are able to get the support, psychological and other support they so dearly need.
Do you know who is directly involved in the extraction, in trying to free them?
Yeah, I can see if I can get some more information on that.
Thank you.
Yes, on Syria, Russia submitted a proposal calling for establishment of the zones of reduction of tensions in the country with safety lines along them, checkpoints and monitoring centers. Do you know of this proposal, and do you have any comments on that?
No, I haven't seen it. Do you know where it was proposed? Was it?
Probably in Astana today. I'm not sure.
I mean, my understanding is that there are discussions going on in Astana, obviously on the ceasefire and other issues, and we'll. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have some representation there. We'll see what we can get you. Carol, and then Matthew.
Stéphane, on Western Sahara, given the pullback from the Polisario, how quickly do you think these negotiations in the new spirit that the Secretary General is pushing for will happen, and specifically the appointment of a new envoy?
When we have something to announce on the new envoy, we will. It's obviously a work in progress. We would like to see those start as quickly as possible. Yep.
Sure. Again, sorry to go back to something, but on Friday I'd asked you about MONUSCO saying that there are at least 5 new allegations of sexual abuse by military and non-military personnel, including from Burundi. And I wanted to know, first of all, do you have more? It seems strange. What's the policy now in terms of making these announcements? Are they done by headquarters, by the?
I think we expect, we very much expect the missions to regularly update on where they are, and if needed, we can echo it from here, but it's up to the missions to do it. The CDU website, the website of the Conduct and Discipline Unit is regularly updated. I think you can sign up for email updates for them. I think I fell back because I think I should have been prepared and know what was announced, but whatever, there was a breakdown in communications. But it's perfectly appropriate, and in fact expected, for peacekeeping missions to do those announcements themselves.
I guess my question was one of the things that they seem to emphasize at MONUSCO was that one of the alleged victim, that's a minor, is going to be, quote, in the care of UNICEF. And given the recent report and call by Code Blue that UNICEF didn't follow through on what they say on victims in CAR, has anything been learned from that? Is there any UN
Well, I mean,
response?
I think it was an allegation from Code Blue. I think you've seen the response from UNICEF. You're also welcome to contact them. I think UNICEF works very closely with the victims, and we have no doubt that this particular person will be assisted and well assisted by UNICEF for medical and psychosocial care.
And I want to ask you a Cameroon question. I mean, the internet is on, but there now, over the most recent weekend, there was a guy, Awa Romeo, beaten to death by the police, and there's footage of it. And I'm just sort of wondering, what's the follow-up of that mission by Francois Lanseny-Fall in terms of, he said he's coming back at some later date, but
he said, I think he was coming back. I think he was coming back in May, which is this month, and I have no doubt his office is following the situation.
Because the mission itself, the Cameroonian mission here, is now using his statement as sort of to say, like, everything is great. I was handed.
Well,
by
that's.
them.
I mean, I think everybody's free to interpret.
Sure.
I think Mr. Lanseny-Fall's statement was fairly clear in what he felt the situation was and what he felt needs to be done.
You have a WIPO question, and it's more specific than last time. I know that I've now seen. I saw the picture that he sat with Mr. Gurry, the Secretary General. WIPO is actually, it is reported, gotten the local authorities to file a criminal defamation complaint against a media or a reporter in Geneva. And I wanted to know, again, what is the UN's thinking in the sense of using, I thought the UN was against criminal defamation laws. Is it appropriate for UN system entity using it?
As you know, WIPO is an independent agency with its own governing board, and the head of WIPO reports to it. As far as we're concerned here, we're not in the habit of using such measures. Thank you.